Hey, Mr. Pond Boss, tell me what to do to make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Hello, everybody. Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss, checking in live here on this Wednesday, August 21. How's everybody doing? Check us in, check us out, see what's going on. I thought today that I would start off with trying to get my laptop going, which y'all know the drill on that. Y'all hang out to hear some. I thought I'd just kind of fly by the seat of my pants. Haven't really thought of a topic today. Of course, I see Jason Nebstad up. We got 5 people viewing. No, heck, we got 8 people viewing. So as soon as the video comes up where I can see myself on my laptop, then I can figure out what we're doing and what's going on and see who you are and what's going on. I see John Funk as well. Hi, John. Holy cow. Okay, here we go. I found it. I'm going to click on it. Here we are. Troy Todd, you guys already know what to do. Yes, you do. Ron Ardoin. Ron from Southern Mississippi. Hey, Ron, did you know Towfield Bourgeois, the fishing guide? Did you hear about him? Daniel Hendrick. Hi, Daniel. Hope things are progressing down there on your place. Let's see who else we got. You know, sometimes I can see what's going on. Sometimes I can't. So if I miss you, I don't do it on purpose. See Ed Brewer checking in. You guys know the drill. Pond Boss Magazine, $35 a year. It's worth it. It's worth it. It fuels the economy to help be able to produce this video on Wednesdays and motivate me to show up. And if you will click like on this video, hashtag Pond Boss Magazine, and share this to your timeline, you'll be eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat and a mug that knows how to keep hot things hot and cold things cold. You probably get tired of listening to that, don't you? So let's see what comments we got going on here, if my computer will work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it don't. Mike Cottrell, got it. Danny Mack, holy cow. Danny Mack, it's a bit cooler today. Yeah, it dropped from 102 to about 98, didn't it, buddy? There's John Wilson. Hey, John, you know what? You're from, you know, I've been I lurk and stalk people. I don't stalk people. I kind of lurk on Facebook. I kind of watch your travels. It's pretty cool. And here's David Reichs. I hope y'all are sitting side by side sharing something cold like some sweet tea. You guys do that there? Glad y'all are here. BJ Cox. BJ, he grew up with my wife, I believe, in Duncanville, America. What I thought I'd do today is just talk about some of the things I've been doing lately, because there's a couple of pretty cool things that are happening, and I thought I'd share that. But I just got up here about 30 minutes ago, and I went through the mail, and I got a letter from Texas A&M, from the Association of Former Students. I'm sure they'd like some money. I got my Texas Co-op Power magazine. That's a pretty cool magazine. I'm a member of the Electric Co-op, and they produce a really interesting magazine. But I got a letter, look there, I got a letter from Melania Trump. Holy cow, I can't wait to see what she wants. Oh, wait, she wants money. Well, so much for that. So much for money. Tony Valukas. Oh gosh, Tony, I'm sure I just butchered your name. I'm gonna try it again. Valukas. Now, you know what? I'm gonna try it. 108 degrees outside. You just got your aerators installed. Hey man, caution on the aerators. If you installed aerators and it's 102 degrees, be sure to follow the manufacturer's recommendations. I would not turn that aeration on full bore right now. No way. There's Michael Eric checking in from Iowa. Field of Dreams up there, man. They're going to have a Major League Baseball game in Iowa. Is that the first time they've ever had a Major League Baseball game? I've been doing some pretty cool stuff. I don't know if I've told you guys this or not, but I got a call from an oil man from West Texas. And he's got a ranch. I guess you can call it a ranch. There's not a lot of grass on it. It's in the desert between Pecos, Texas, and Carlsbad, New Mexico. You know how the panhandle of Texas goes like this, and then it goes toward El Paso? Well, he's right there along that line that heads over toward El Paso over here in Texas. And he called me, or his ranch manager called me, and they wanted to figure out how they could build a 6 to 8 acre lake. Well, they don't have any clay. It doesn't rain, and when it rains in spurts. That's a good description, spurts. But he's been in the oil field since he was a little bitty guy, and so he understands the oil field. He understands how the oil patch works, and never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be in a traffic jam on a rural highway in the desert between Carlsbad, New Mexico, and Pecos, Texas. But I was in about a 20 or 30 minute traffic jam on a 2-lane highway when I went up there. Well, what he does in his oil field business is he provides things to the oil patch. He has a company that manufactures liners. He's got a heavy equipment company. So as we started talking, he's got the elements. I mean, he can build, he can carve out in a valley in the desert. He's got a little mountain, if you want to call it that, that's about 200 feet tall. It's a bluff that falls almost straight down, and then a flat area that he can excavate that's mostly gritty limestone and sand. And he can excavate that, and he can put a liner in it, and he can create a lake if he wants. And he's got several water wells. So I'm going to lay that out there for you. If you were going to advise him on what to do to build a lake, and he's got like 10 water wells in West Texas, near Red Bluff Lake and the Pecos River, what would you tell him? Think about that, and if you got some ideas, pitch them to me, and I'll circle back on it a little bit if I remember, and I'll tell you what I told him. Let's see here. Danny Mack says, I lost 3 copper-nosed bluegill a couple of days. I quit feeding the horde of bluegills. You know, Danny Mack, what you might do, you might look at those fish and see if they've got any sores on them. And if your copper-nosed bluegill or any fish right now that you're feeding, if they've got any red spots or what looks like bruises, medicate the feed and go ahead and feed them, but spread your feeding times out. If you'll feed them 3 times a day instead of 1 time a day, you'll have fewer fish coming at each feeding, and they're going to be less likely to hurt each other. And if you want to medicate your feed, go to the feed store, buy any over-the-counter antibiotic, powdered. You know, it can be penicillin, it can be amoxicillin. Doesn't really matter what the antibiotic is, but you take 2 ounces of that, mix it with a small bottle of Karo syrup or a small bottle of vegetable oil, emulsify that really well, and then diffuse it over a bag of fish food. And then stir it up. What I do is I pour the fish food in a wheelbarrow, drizzle that mix over the wheelbarrow full of fish food, take a hoe, and then I just churn it in till it all gets mixed as uniformly as possible, and then feed that fish food. So if your fish are bruised up, that can help get an antibiotic into their system and help clear up those bruises and bumps and things. Chad Donaldson, hi Chad. Will and all big mouth bass pond work? I'm having trouble finding a bluegill dealer. No, it really won't. Unless you know what? Yeah, it'll work if you're happy with a bunch of 10 to 14 inch blue bass, because that's what you're going to get. Because if they have to feed on each other, the food chain is going to be bass, and they're going to spawn once a year, maybe twice a year sometimes. If they're not in too bad a shape, they'll spawn a couple of times. But if that's all they have to eat, then they're not going to gain a lot of weight. You're going to end up with too many mouths with not enough food. They're going to be long and skinny, and they're not going to get very big. I don't remember where you are, Chad. I know you've been on this show before, but I don't remember where you are. But there's some companies around the world, like American Sport Fish, that will actually ship you fish if it's legal in your state. So now you don't want to do it this time of year because it's just a little bit too hot. And I'm not sure you'd want to do it in the fall, but in the springtime might be a really good idea to do that. And that can help you establish a bluegill fishery. And the bluegill is what it takes. That's the backbone of the food chain, and that kind of depends on where you are as well. Keith Mowdy from Innsbruck. Hey, Keith. Good to see you, buddy. What's going on? All right, let me stroke back here and see what I got. Okay, I've said hello to everybody, looks like. Good. Yep, Ed Brewer. Hello, Ed. Yep, said Ed John. Let's see. Tom Davis from Ohio. Good, I didn't see Tom's name a while ago. Okay. Keith Mowdy from Innsbruck. Yep, we said howdy. Chad Donaldson, Washington. Which Washington? Washington, Missouri, Washington State, Washington, Missouri. I'm going to presume you're from Washington State. You know, you should be able to get some pumpkin seeds there. And I tell you something you ought to do. Check in with bassresource.com. Glenn May lives in Washington. He's the guy that founded that website. And send him a message. If anybody knows anything about what's going on there, you can find some. Danny Mac, I tell him to check that water. Atta boy, Danny Mac, you're leading the list, buddy. And Keith said, is there a ratio bass to bluegill / hybrid? Well, we'll look at the hybrids as a separate entity. The ratio of bass to bluegill is you want 10 bluegill per bass when you're stocking the lake. Now, it depends. I mean, I've got some guys that are in a hurry. I mean, we're in a fast food world. People want to drive in, place their order, and pick it up right there at the window and feed on it. You know, and that's the same thing with fishing lakes. So there's a lot of different strategies, but the general rule of thumb is 10 bluegill per bass when you're stocking. That's the general rule. Some people create a bigger ratio, like 20 bluegill per bass, but they'll also put maybe 200 bass and 10,000 bluegill. So, you know, it just really depends on your strategy, but that's a good answer. Going back to Danny Mac, yep, tell him to check the water. Here's what I told him. I knew that water out there in the oil patch can really be crippled, and I knew it could be salty. Now, freshwater fish can live in salty water, but there's a limit. They can live in salty water up to the point where it's, you know, by the time it's about 4,000 parts per million total salts, it starts to affect their ability to reproduce. You know, so they've got 10 different wells. One well's really deep. He said like 4,000 feet. Well, I couldn't wait to find out what that water was like. That water in that really deep well was 10,000 parts per million salt. Now compare that to ocean water, which is 32,000 parts per million salt. You can taste salt in the water at about 3,500 parts per million. You can really taste it. You know, and so my rule of thumb is if we can keep the total salts below about 3,000 or 3,500 parts per million, yes, we can have a pond that we can manage. Now, here's another caveat that people don't think about unless you've been involved in it some, is when you've got water that's got salinity for anywhere from 1,000 to 3,500 parts per million salt, you're subject to golden algae. And that was one of the first areas where people found golden algae. Killed fish in Red Bluff Lake and the Pecos River. It's notorious back in, I think the first fish kills they found were in the 80s, but they didn't figure out what it was until around 2001, 2002. And so what my protocols, it's just not going to be, I'm not even thinking about how to design the lake as much now as I'm thinking about how are they going to manage the saltiness of the water, what kind of fish can they raise, and then how do they manage that water? Because there's this thing out there called summer, and it's 100 and something degrees every day, but they also have a pretty harsh winter. So what I'm going to tell them, already started telling them, is they have to position themselves where they can exchange water. Well, part of the reason this guy has pond liners as a business, he builds frac ponds. So he'll pump water into frac ponds, they'll extract or pump the water onto trucks, take it to well sites, which you can look up from where we were and see 25 well sites out there for oil wells. So he can go somewhere with the water. So part of his management strategy out there in the desolate oil patch where the water's horrible and there is no clay is to build a liner pond, use his well water, suck water off the bottom of that pond, put it in a frac pond, and take it to a well site. The other thing I'm going to have him consider is to create and build, you guys probably watched Bruce Kanya with me week before last, and Bruce and I were talking about floating islands. This is a classic example of a situation and a scenario where floating islands could be real important. So what I'm going to do is budget in some money for Bruce to design a floating island that's a long, narrow stream bed type island that can use solar power to pick water up from the depths and pump it across the island and grow a bunch of plants. It would look cool in the desert, plus it would be habitat for fish, plus we could generate some good periphyton and biofilm that could generate a food chain and consume some of the nutrients they're going to start to build up in that pond and help try to compete against golden algae. But they are going to have to be checking for golden algae. I'm going to have them send water samples once the lake is built to figure out how to manage golden algae or prevent golden algae. You know, we'll be monitoring it, and the minute golden algae shows up, we're going to start learning how to deal with it. So Danny Mac, home run, buddy. Let's see, Ethan Lovelace is in, Jeremy Duckworth, Leanne checking in. Hey, Jacob West, good to see you. Mark Sanders checking in from Tyler. Hello, Mark. So Ron Ardoin says he could aerate. Well water has little or no oxygen. Check alkalinity and you can fertilize. So yes, here's the bottom line. The water is going to be the key to the success of that lake in West Texas. So we're definitely going to create an aeration system for them, especially since it's going to be a liner pond. But since it also sits in the desert, and where they have an annual average of 18 inches of rain per year, which would be fresh water, they're going to have to depend on well water primarily. Well, we want to be able to aerate, move the water so it can cleanse itself some as well with a floating island or two. There's Dave Davidson, one of the Pond Boss website moderators. If you guys haven't met Dave, you need to. Go spend some time on the pondboss.com website, Ask the Boss forum. There's over 500,000 posts there. If you've got a question about pond management, I promise you it's probably been asked on that forum. We established the forum back in 2002, and Dave is one of the first moderators. Matter of fact, he's probably the longest lasting moderator. Remember, there's something happened years ago. I'd love to tell the story, but I won't. That Dave brought some things to my attention where we really needed to police the site, and he was the first guy asked to be a moderator. So let's see here. Jason Nebstad, about to place a large order for eelgrass. I was wondering to figure out the best way to plant it without lowering the lake. Heard about tying a rock to the plants, but the guy that sells it, he's concerned it won't root in the sandy bottom. Yeah, it will root. It'll root in the sandy bottom. I think the main thing is if you can establish it in 6 or 7 places and use some exclusion fences if you can to keep turtles from disturbing it. Just pick 5 or 6 places. And once it establishes, you can see where it establishes the best. And then go find other places like that to do it again. That's what I would do, Jason. Let's see. Scott Hohenzy checking in for Purina. Purina is a sponsor of this show. Scott's in the wildlife feed business. And you know, if you haven't spent time with Scott Hohenzy, you really should. Message him here on Facebook. This guy is one of the smartest guys I've ever met about wildlife, feeding deer. I mean, this guy's got it going on. He's involved in so many cool programs. It's just astonishing. Friend him on Facebook. Scott Hohenzy, Purina Mills, and he also helps market some of the Aquamax products. Steve Alexander from Private Waters Fishing. Hello, Steve. Good to see you. I hope you're healing up good, buddy. Steve knocked his kneecap off. Oh boy, that makes the hair stand up on your neck, doesn't it? Woo! He fell off of a trailer, knocked his kneecap off. But check out Private Waters Fishing. A real cool concept that Steve took over this business several years ago, and he's really doing a great job making it thrive. Derek Wolf from Whitesboro. Hey, Derek. Good to see you. Derek's got some ponds. Christopher Aguilar checking in. Ron Ardoin, then watch the fertilization if it's salty water grows algae. Salty water does grow algae. As a matter of fact, the problem with salty water is it grows some algae we might not want. Here's one of the good things about salty water too, guys. Salty water is one of the organic, natural methods of controlling diseases in fish. There's not many parasites and bacteria that can live through water much saltier than about 2,500 parts per million. You know, now one of the things I'm probably going to recommend is that they stock some hybrid striped bass. Because hybrid stripers, stripers are saltwater fish anyway that live in fresh water. Hey, David Figg, good to see you, man. How's everything going on over there in Georgia? Jaden Roberts, hi, Jaden. Jim Liner, my water temperature is peaked at 87 at so many inches. Good. Clark Cole, last week's winter. I guess we didn't have winter this week. I came in here and I didn't see a little sticky note on my door, so we'll do that next week. Sean Peters, I'm in Central Illinois. Started a new pond with yellow perch and having trouble getting them started. You know, that's really pretty interesting because starting a new pond with yellow perch depends on what size that you start them with and if they're feed trained. I think if you started off with some that are feed trained and do it in cooler weather, preferably in the fall, going into the winter, and feed them to where they're really in good shape. Make sure you got a good natural food chain, fathead minnows, that sort of thing. Then you'd be able to do a little better, I think. Let's see here. Holy cow, I'm getting behind on the comments. Let's see here. Zach Cook. Hello, Bob. Just bought a house with a half-acre pond aerated with a maximum depth 18 feet. Caught a few bluegill, bass, and channel cat. I want to mainly catch bluegill out of there. I was wondering how many bluegill to stock. I live in Northwest Indiana. Northwest Indiana, bluegill are going to spawn once or twice a year. That's it. So what you're going to want is going to want to maintain a bass crowded situation. harvest the catfish, and I would be tempted to feed the bluegills. Now, if you're going to feed the bluegills, feed them to supplement. Don't feed them to grow bluegills. The reason you want to do that, feed Purina's Aquamax MVP. That's 9 different pellet sizes, highly nutritious. They convert it very, very well. And your mission would be to try to get more baby bluegills. That's what you'd want. You'd want to feed your fish, your bluegills, to where they can have healthier eggs, better numbers of eggs, so you can increase your odds of growing bigger bluegill. But you're going to have crowded bass, because the crowded bass are going to be the fish that are able to thin out the herd of bluegills as they develop, because you only want the best of the best bluegills to develop. So protect your biggest bluegills. Expect to have crowded bass. In a half acre in northwest Indiana, I'm going to tell you that if you've got 20 bass, that's crowded in a half acre pond. So let's see. Jason Nipstad, aquariumplants.com. Danny Mack, where can I place a large order for eelgrass? Man, I'd hire somebody that lives around Athens, have them go pull it up out of Lake Athens. Let's see, and I don't know how big is big. Christopher Aguilar, I'm the winner by default. Yep. I still haven't seen any boudin come in overnight. Ron Ardoin, how important is it to check hardness? Does hardness somewhat correlate with alkalinity? Yes, it does. So, without getting into a dissertation on water chemistry, in the next issue of Pond Boss, you guys need to subscribe. Have I told you it's $35 a year? $35 a year for this magazine. In the next issue, I've got an article coming out that's called Water Chemistry for Dummies. And I'm the one that wrote it. Who's the dummy? Who's the dummy now? I am. So, to give you a direct answer to this question, hardness takes into account a number of different minerals and cations and their anions. So it takes into account like calcium sulfate, magnesium sulfate, calcium carbonate. All what makes water hard are the metals and the minerals that are dissolved in it. Soft water doesn't have metals and minerals dissolved in it, or if it does, it's just a little bit. So the harder the water, the more stuff is dissolved in it. That's what constitutes hard water. The difference between hard water and alkalinity is a measure of calcium carbonate, which is lime, ag lime. So that's the difference. Hardness takes everything into account. Alkalinity only takes in calcium carbonate. Let's see here. Jason Nepstad, I'm ordering jungle val and smaller amount of Italian val, because val means vallisneria, by the way. He's kind of getting the lingo on us here. I don't know which one is going to work, that's a smart idea. Jason researches things outstanding, does a great job of doing that. And what he's learned is don't put all your eggs in one basket, because if you buy one species of vallisneria and it doesn't work, then where are you? So he's going to buy 2 different strains of vallisneria. One of them doesn't grow quite as tall as the other one, he says. So I love that. Let me go back here and make sure I haven't missed anything. And it's really weird. Every time I go back through all these things after I'm finished with the show, there's things I missed. Look at there's John Funk. Should I restock my GSH Golden Shiners after 2 years, or will the young of the year keep things good? You know what? Your pond is going to tell you that. I can't answer that. I know this, that when you stock Golden Shiners, the longer they live, the fewer babies they have. So if you can see their numbers begin to dwindle, and when they feed around a feeder, if you feed the fish, what you're going to see is like little bitty raindrops hitting the water when Golden Shiners are feeding. It's not a bad idea to restock some from time to time if you have them. Now you got to have a good reason to want to stock them, and I don't really want to go in. Yeah, I'll go into that a little bit. Golden Shiners are predator fish, limited by mouth size. I mean, you catch them under a bobber on a piece of nightcrawler, so that also makes them nest raiders. But in ponds that fluctuate levels quite a bit, or in ponds where you can't have other fish like threadfin shad, Golden Shiners can be a good choice to be an additional forage fish for fish like largemouth bass. So it could be. Okay, so I want to go back to Jim Liner over there in Montgomery, Alabama. His temperatures peaked at 87 degrees. That's pretty hot. You know, 87 degrees is at the upper limit of what largemouth bass and bluegill really can tolerate. They don't like it much warmer than that. And that's why I'll often preach, you know, when you put in an aeration system, my opinion, now the aeration experts may argue with me, and that's fine. I love a good argument, especially if they're right or if I'm right. Doesn't matter. I love to hear, I love to learn. But what I have learned is that God didn't make a thermocline for no reason. Fish love to seek a thermal refuge in the summertime. Thermal refuge could be where the water's 82 or 83 degrees. But if they don't have that, they can't get to it, it would be like you and I staying in the desert, 117 degrees all day long. At some point, the weakest of us are going to die. And that's usually the older fish. So 87 is about maxed out for temperature. So I'm glad it's peaked at that. I hope it starts cooling down from that. And I'm going to expect that that's probably in the top foot of the water. Let's see here. Danny Mack says, I finally sprung for 10 pounds of MVP off Amazon. I've been feeding optimal bass. I've seen more young of the year bass going for the MVP. Well, hey, you know what? It's kind of hard to argue with that. The MVP is designed for that. And if you go to the feed store and buy it, you can probably get a 40 or 50 pound bag for $42, $43 and compare that to what you paid for the 10 pounds off of Amazon. You know, so I'm glad to hear that comment because I don't use Optimal. They promised to send me some in the past. Haven't gotten it. I've talked to them in the past. We've talked about working on some projects, and it's just, you know, and I'm a Purina guy. Bottom line, I am a Purina guy. My loyalty is there because I have worked with them and watched them over the years do the research that it takes, the R&D, to create fish foods for our niche. And I have a sense of loyalty for that. And I've seen how well it works. I mean, I've grown some 3.5 pound bluegill on that stuff. You know, so it's kind of hard to not dance with what gets you to the dance. Let's see here. Scott McClure, one of the best things to focus on before winter in a couple of months here in Nebraska. Want to keep good momentum. Cleared my filamentous algae in Sago Pond with a mixture of herbicides, algicides, and natural lake projects. That's probably the smartest thing you could do. Because when you go into winter in the Midwest and going north, and you end up with ice cover. Now, I don't know, in your part of Nebraska, you probably have ice cover for 2 months, 2.5 months. If that's the truth, you're at a lot lower risk of having winter kill than somebody would be in northern Nebraska and going into the Dakotas. And even further, you know, east and west, Minnesota, northern Michigan, areas there. You know, when they have 4 months worth of winter or 5 months worth of winter, 18 inches of ice, and there's any living plants there, they're going to consume all the oxygen. The smartest things you can do right now in the north to prepare for winter is to move your water either with circulators or aerators and keep your aquatic plants at bay. Now, I still like some aquatic plants, but if you have too much, now is the time to take them out. Because if you take them out now, they've got time to decompose without consuming all the oxygen under ice. So don't wait a month and take out plants, and then when you at ice up in December or late, early January, and the plants are still decomposing from when they died, that's going to be a greater risk for winter kill. So look at there. There's Ann Kanya, which I bet she got Bruce looking over her shoulder. It might be vice versa. Good to see you guys up there from Montana, Shepherd, Montana. Floating Island International, folks. Check them out. Floating Island International. Chuck Brinkman sent me a cool video of his baby girl catching a 5-pound channel catfish. That was great. Let's see here. Clark Cole wants to know. Clark Cole lives over in Weatherford, Texas. Worked for me way back in the 80s. Good gosh. He didn't have gray hair back then. Let's see here. My son's 10-acre lake is an old clay pit. Two sides are sheer 15-foot drop-offs. The main water access is beyond an area where erosion is closely encroaching the narrow road along the fence line. We will lose water access soon if erosion continues. There's only two ways to mitigate erosion. One is to soften the slopes, and one is to vegetate. And it's hard to vegetate anything with a slope that's like that. So that's probably going to talk about, you're probably going to have to end up talking about moving some dirt. Bringing in a track hoe and rearranging some dirt or a bulldozer. It just depends on what kind of dirt you've got, but you're going to have to do something to move dirt, to soften the slopes and get something growing. And ground cover is good. Bermuda grass there in Weatherford, Texas, if that's where he is, or he's going to be around the Metroplex somewhere. Bermuda grass is the best choice over there, and right now is a good time to do that. You can go buy some Bermuda grass seed, get it planted, and you should get enough startup growth now to make it through the winter. Might have to water it, but that's part of the drill. Gym liner at 10 feet, it's 82 degrees without aerators running. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Ron Ardoin, if we place bottom, you know what, I don't want to jump out of Jim's lap too quick. At 10 feet, it's 82 degrees without aerators. At 10 feet, that's where your thermocline is. Your thermocline is probably more like 8 to 9 feet. So your temperature is going to go from 87 to 82, and in there somewhere as it drops to 84, 83, there'll still be enough oxygen in the water for fish to be attracted to that. Ardoin says, if we place bottom diffusers at 8 feet and a 12-foot depth, will oxygen saturate to the 12-foot depths? Probably not. Now, it depends on the bubble plumes and how many diffusers you use in the shape of the pond. Because what happens with those diffusers, it takes the water at that level with the bubble plumes, it pushes water upward. And the water at that level and below is cooler, which means it's more dense. So it's going to have something physical to push oxygen down into that deeper water, which that's part of the point. If you can have a thermocline at 10 feet instead of 5 feet, then you're going to mitigate the risk of a turnover, plus you're going to decrease the volume of water that's not aerated, and you're going to have a thermal refuge for fish to go in. Chris Chavetta checking in. Good to see you, buddy. Gary Hempel, got it. Dang spell check. Boo. Jim, I don't know what you did there, but I kind of got the point. So bring your questions to me. Something else that I've been doing. I went and gave a speech yesterday in Wichita Falls, Texas, where they have the Hotter Than Hell 500 every year, where it's a bicycle race. It was 106 degrees there when I left. Spoke to a small group of people about pond management. And afterwards, a lady came up to me and she said, I work for an education foundation in West Texas. And right off the Cap Rock, we have an old beaver pond that was 5 acres, and the beaver pond has deteriorated. And now the pond has gone from 5 acres to 2.5 acres. Well, we brought in some heavy equipment and we dug out some dirt in the beaver pond, but the rest of the dirt's now collapsed and we've lost the depth that we had. What should we do? So I'm going to pitch that out there to you and let you think about that for a minute. What would you tell her? You know, when I was giving the speech, I was asking everybody, why are you here? You know, what is it you want to hear? I want to be sure and cover the topics that are interesting to you. I don't want you to stand up here and, start barking in front of the crowd and trying to be a preacher of pond management. I want to answer questions that you've got, or at least tackle that topic and bring up some stuff. So when I got to her, she said, she told me what I already told you, and she says, our beaver dam has failed. And I said, well, you need to hire some more beavers. So the beavers are gone. So the dam failed. Now, what would you tell her? I'll circle back to that in a minute. 7:03, I want to thank our sponsors, Texas Hunter Feeders. Chris Blood usually checks in, and they're working on some cool new stuff. They got a brand new deer blind. If you haven't been to their website, go to Texas Hunter Products, check them out. They've got a wide variety of fish feeders, but they also sell a bunch of different kinds of products for hunters. That's why they're called Texas Hunter Products. So go spend a little time there too. They're really good. And my favorite thing about Texas Hunter is not only are their products outstanding, their customer service is outstanding. I got an email from a guy in Kansas City that I had just helped design a lake for, and he bought 2 feeders, and one of the feeders' battery's gone dead. So I emailed him, or he texted me, I guess it was the day before yesterday, and told me what was going on. So I immediately sent an email to Chris Blood and copied a couple other guys, and Chris Blood turned right back around, emailed him straight away. The guy wants to buy 2 new feeders, but he wants to make sure his other feeders are working before he buys 2 more. Chris sent him a battery, and I doubt that he gets an invoice for that. And he did it within 20 or 30 minutes of opening the store yesterday. There's my wife checking in. Good to see you, honey. Scott McClurg, when is a good time to stop aeration for winter? Do you bring it down slowly by day till totally off? 20 hours, 16, 12? No, I wouldn't. When the water temperature gets below 16 and staying there, pick 55. That's a good number. When the water temperature hits 55, it's autonomous top to bottom. Anyway, turn off your aerators. Because at that point, you're not going to be worried about moving the water to cleanse it, because now we're going into the dormant time, which it varies where in the heck you are when the water temperature hits 55. But once you hit 55 going down, turn it off. And don't worry about turning it back on until the water hits about 55 or 60 next spring. Now, there's always a caveat for that. Always. One thing to do is to understand that if you live in a winter kill prone area, then I would consider aerating part of the time to help manage against winter kill. And in that case, don't aerate in the middle of the pond. Bring your diffuser up into water about 5 feet deep. Make sure that you've got the hose, the weighted diffuser hose, the weighted hose, it doesn't freeze with water in it. So you need to be sure you've got a one-way valve that only blows air and won't let water flow back in it. And then if you need to aerate close to the edge. And that's only to keep a hole open to prevent winter kill. That's the reason I would say that. Gary Hempel, when you come to get these snapping turtles out of my pond, you know you want them. Can't think of anything I've ever wanted more than a snapping turtle. Where's the Kentucky Turtle Man? Whatever happened to that guy? Do you guys ever see those videos? That guy, man, I laughed a lot and I haven't seen him in a while. I don't know what happened to him. He had a TV show for about 30 minutes. Lisa Taylor, hey Bob, the pond on our property was left unkept. You know what, before I leave that, when you've got snapping turtles, here's something that's real important. You don't have many. Snapping turtles are real territorial. I had a guy send me a video a couple weeks ago where turtles were eating fish food coming out of his Texas Hunter feeder. And I was amazed, really. I mean, I see a lot of turtles, snakes, stuff like that. I've never seen that many turtles feeding on that much fish food. They were just wearing it out. And he really needs to trap some turtles, but not one of those was a snapping turtle. I don't know where my throat's going, but I'm going to go with it. So, if you've got like alligator or common snapping turtles, you probably got 1 or 2 in a 1 acre pond. You might have 4 in a 5 acre pond because they're really territorial. You won't have many. Lisa Taylor, hey Bob, the pond on our property was left unkept. What can we do this fall to get it ready for a nice managed pond in the spring, southeast Michigan? Lisa, I tell you what I would do. I would do some clearing around the edges. Then I would evaluate over the winter or this fall. I tell you what, if you can clear it enough, when you say unkept, what I'm hearing you say is it's all grown up around the pond, cattails, things like that. I would be tempted to physically remove as many cattails as you can. That might be with a weed eater or with a blade. Pull some of the organic matter away from the edge, and then if you got trees around it, rake out as many leaves as you can, because the leaves in a northern pond are going to be what causes problems with your water chemistry, your water quality. We have a lot of cormorants around our pond. They've eaten a lot of the fish and most of the frogs. How can we deter them? Let me think here. Well, in another life, I would tell you to shoot them, but on a live broadcast, I'm probably not, even though I want to. Trying to think about what I should tell you about cormorants. Cormorants are migratory, and if you can take away their roosts, if you've got a roost nearby where they spend the night, they're going to leave. They're going to go south. Matter of fact, your cormorants are going to be on my pond here in about 6 or 8 weeks. And I will be sure that they don't stay. Loud noises. You can buy devices. I'll tell you what somebody does. This is a cool idea. Lake Vilbig, a lot of times they check in. I was talking to one of the Lake Vilbig guys 3 or 4 years ago, and they had an old John boat. They put a mannequin in it and put a couple of fishing poles in the mannequin's hands. And off the end of the fishing poles, they had monofilament line coming down where they tied 3 or 4 pie pans together, and they spin in the wind, and they would anchor the boat loosely, and then they had silver foil pie pans that would clatter together and spin and shine, and they claimed that that would keep the water turkeys off that lake, which I thought that was pretty cool. Let's see here. Danny Mack says the one pet turtle in the pond's one turtle too many. You know, yeah, a lot of folks can look at it that way. The way I see it, turtles are part of the natural environment, but too many of them, you know, a turtle's not going to affect the fish population. But what too many turtles can do is they can disrupt the fish's ability to reproduce because they'll raid the nests and they'll eat your fish food. So that's pretty good reason right there to take them. I'll tell you this, if a turtle catches a fish, the fish deserved it, unless it was a snapping turtle. So, look at Scott McClure. Take a look at Catzilla from Natural Lake. I'm looking at them for breaking down the cattails. You know, I love Natural Lake. Those guys, Landon Wyatt, Kevin Ripp, those guys are really, really on the cutting edge, in the forefront of doing things to help manage decaying vegetation and to help provide some of the natural bacteria and microbes that ponds need to be able to expedite the breakdown of organic matter. Here's what you need to know about that. The more you can move your water, and this is straight out of Bruce Kanya's playbook with floating islands. If you can move the water and you have plenty of substrate for biofilm and periphyton to grow on, then you're going to mitigate your water quality's deterioration. So think about that. Over the years, I've been using like a moss-back fish habitat. They take up space in the vertical part of the water column. You know, they're made out of plastic, recycled plastic and PVC. So bacterial colonies in the PVC pipe, they run it through a machine that sands it so it's a rougher substrate. And bacteria cling to that all over the place. So most of the artificial habitat that you can buy helps create that surface area for natural bacteria to cling and help clean the water up. Let's see here. Gary Hempel, I have more red ear sliders than Carter has liver pills. My mama used to say that. That's good stuff. Gary says a 12-gauge Ithaca. I think he wants to introduce that 12-gauge Ithaca to some water turkeys. Lisa Taylor, that's hilarious. Good thinking. Thanks for all that. You're welcome. There's Paul Picard checking in from Mississippi. So here we are at 7:12. Let's go back to that topic I started a while ago. What was it? I got to remember. The beaver pond. The beaver pond. She wants to save the beaver pond, keep it at 5 acres, and have it natural. Well, here's the problem. She's not going to be able to do that. There are no beavers. They left. And I asked her, I said, were the beavers trapped? She said, no, they weren't. Well, then that means they ran out of food. And that means that they chopped down all the trees in that area that they could eat. And they couldn't make a living, so they moved on to another place where they could make a living. So if that area grows up with more willow trees and stuff that beavers like to cut, you know, button willows and button bush and stuff like that, then the beavers may come back on their own. But even though it was tongue-in-cheek about hiring more beavers, I kind of mean it. But if you have to bring in heavy equipment, you cannot repair a beaver dam. Beavers do that. You know, and even if you did, you're throwing good money after bad. So if she wants that 5-acre pond, they need to bring in some heavy equipment, look at it like they would look at a new pond, move some dirt to create it, figure out the flow rate of water, measure the watershed. She said there's some springs out there, which totally makes sense because it's in an area from the high plains east of Lubbock that falls down about 400 feet towards sea level, and they're down in that area where we call the Cap Rock out in West Texas, and there's a lot of seep springs and even a few aquifer springs out there. So she could figure that out, but she's not going to be able to have a beaver pond. If you want it to be natural, leave it alone. It's going to be natural. That's what it's going to be. It won't be a beaver pond because the beavers aren't managing it, so it has to deteriorate, or we can look at it in another sense, it's going to become something different. It may become a creek again. That's what's natural. So I haven't had a conversation with her yet to talk about it. She sent me some pictures and a pin on Google Earth. So I'm going to study that and then get back with her and talk about it. But I'm telling you that that's what I would do. Steve Alexander, Bobby, you have such a gift of communication. So glad you share your talents. Hey, Steve, man, thank you very much. I do talk a lot. And I've been down a few roads. And I don't get real philosophical much. Or maybe I do. I don't know. But I think that my gift and my calling from God is to help people be better stewards of their land and water. And if I don't do this, shame on me. All I want you guys to do is write a check for $35. Whew, I hope y'all are laughing because I meant that to be funny, although I do want you to send a check for $35 for a Pond Boss's subscription. It's worth it. Gary Hempel, swimming pool filter with bioballs. There you go. Yep, that's a good idea. That can you fill your pond up with bioballs, and there's your substrate. Gary says to plant a willow. Yep, and that's probably going to be something I'm going to tell her. Although she doesn't need to plant willows. If they were there before, they should be there now. The only reason they shouldn't be is if something's chewing them down, like a beaver. So that's kind of where I was going on that deal. What else have I been doing? Oh, here's something kind of cool. I've got a son that lives in Houston, and he's one of my kids I'd love to brag about, but I won't. He's doing fine. Well, he just found about 30 acres between Gary Hempel, lifetime sub. I don't do those because I'm not sure how long I'm going to live. Are you talking about a lifetime sub as long as I'm alive or as long as you're alive? No, we're going to do $35 a year, $66 for 2 years. And I'm real queasy about selling 2-year subscriptions. Anyway, my son bought 28 acres, and on it's about a 10th acre pond. And Clint Steffens with Conservation Inc. down there around Cat Springs area, Columbus, that area over there, down west of Houston, came over and drained that pond and carved out a really nice 3/4 acre pond that they had to push down a few trees, so he brought in a crew and cut all the little limbs off and turned it into fish structure, built some brush piles, got it. It's really, 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 really cool pond. I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to sneak down there on Saturday and go see what I can find out about it, see what it looks like. Sheridan Ashmore, good evening, Bob. Good evening, Sheridan Ashmore. So that's another thing, but as my son Jonathan was looking at this property, he's got 2 little boys. He's got a little bitty boy that's 4 years old, and he will be one of the first people on Mars, I promise. He's going to be an astronaut. He already knows. Memes bought him an astronaut uniform, and he can already tell you the constellations. He can tell you about the sun and the moon. He can tell you about Mars. He already knows. He's 4 years old. When I was 4 years old, I was still pooping yellow. So I don't know how this happened, other than he came from a good mama as well as a dad. So anyway, he wants to, and he's got another little boy that's about 2, and they want to raise those kids out of the city limits of Houston on weekends. So they've got this heavily wooded, wildlife rolling acreage with a nice pond on it. They can swim in it. They're going to be able to catch fish in it. It's going to be pretty fun. So I've been able to help advise my son on how to take a little bitty pond, renovate it, and turn it into a bigger pond. And Clint took a bunch of pictures, and I've got some before pictures, but we'll probably put a story in Pond Boss about that. I think it'd be kind of fun. Gary Hempel, I need some beavers to come out and eat my willows and sweet gums. Yeah, and you probably will. The problem with beavers is if you've got any hardwoods and they're close, they're going to want to girdle those trees too. Sheridan Ashmore, can there be a fish kill that happens when there is an algae bloom and water level dropping? Absolutely yes. I don't know if I told this story last week or not, but I'm going to tell it to you right now. I had a call from a lady in Argyle, Texas, which is north of the Metroplex between Dallas and Fort Worth, south of Denton, Texas. And she said, I've got fish coming up. They're gasping for air. They're right at the edge, and they're dying like crazy, and I've already lost about 50. So I started asking her some questions. I said, tell me what's going on. And she said, well, I've got an aeration system. I've got a well, and I had the well off because the pond's full. She said, so I started running my well to get fresh water in there. I went and bought a pump, a sump pump at Home Depot, and I put a pipe on it, and I put it in a bucket, filled the bucket full of holes and water about 4 or 5 feet deep, and I'm picking up water and blowing it out, aerating the water, but the fish are still dying. And I said, well, all right. And she said, we had a rain about 2 weeks ago that raised the level of the water up about 2 feet. And I thought, this cannot be an oxygen depletion. I said, how many fish did you stock? And she said, well, we stocked about 250. And I feed them every day. I said, have you eaten any? She says, no, I've named them. So she's got this little pond, probably half an acre, I think is what she told me. And she's been feeding the fish for 3 years. So now the fish are crowded. She's got them named, Scarface, Billy Bob, little Tommy Cat, and now they're coming up dying, and she's doing everything she can find on the internet to save her fish. And I said, well, what color's the water? She said, the water's brown. She said, here's a clue. She said, my neighbors dyed their pond green. And the dye got into my pond, and now all my rocks are around my pond. She said, I got a bunch of landscape rocks, and they're covered in green dye. I thought, nope, that's it. That's it. So I said, was your pond green? She said it was. And then just like almost overnight, it turned brown, and now it's getting kind of clear. And now all that dye went all over my rocks. Well, she sent me some, Danny Mac, just to guess, my son attended A&M, and actually he was a yell leader in 2003 and 4. And he married his college sweetheart, who was a soccer player. She was on a 4-year full ride to play soccer at A&M. He's 3 years older, so he'd kind of wait on her to graduate. But yes, he did. My son attended A&M. He graduated A&M. His wife is now a pediatrician. Jonathan has a master's degree and has his own wealth management company. So, since you asked, I'm telling you. Hey, Chris Stillman, good to see you, buddy. So anyway, I started drawing in, by a process of elimination, I figured out that it could not be an oxygen depletion. It had to be something else. So she started texting me some pictures as we're talking on the phone. Isn't technology fun? And so I got to look, and I said, you know what? You have got blue-green algae. And what happened was, because she fed the fish so much, didn't harvest them with fish waste, she was feeding an inexpensive fish food, which is converted about 2 to 2.5 to 1, which means for every 2.5 pounds of feed, she gets 1 pound of fish, a pound and a half of fish waste that the pond's got to process. Well, sure, she's got the aeration system going. It breaks down that waste, converts it into nutrients that cause an algae bloom. So in the middle of summer, blue-green algae has a tendency to outcompete the other kinds of good algae that we'd rather have. And what she had was a bloom crash. And when that blue-green algae that was dense enough that she could only see down about 6 or 7 inches in the water, when that stuff died and started to break down, it had enough toxins in it that it gave off the toxins, and that's what was killing her fish. So I told her what would happen is that would be a temporary situation that might kill all of her fish. Putting the well water in and aerating was the smartest thing she could do. So that's what's happening in that deal. 7:23 already. Good gosh. How do these hours go by so fast, kids? Dick Tabbert's checking in. Steve Lewis checking in. I know Steve Lewis has been out checking fish. He gets in at 7:15, 7:20 on a Wednesday evening because he's out working for a living. Dick Tabbert, that's right. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Click like. You know what? We got a few more minutes, and I'm going to follow the lead. Steve Alexander says, what is a good fish food conversion? 1.2 to 1. If you're feeding the right kind of fish food to the species of fish, 1.2 to 1.3 to 1 is good. Actually, that's what you want. Now, if you really were to measure food conversion, this is going to sound a little goofy. If you're supplementally feeding the fish, rather than trying to feed fish for growth and production, you're going to get better conversion rates than that. Because you can take a bluegill, feed it this amount of feed, and it's going to look like it converted it like 0.8 of a pound to a pound of gain, which is physically impossible. But that's only supplemental. That's not the only food that bluegill's eating. It's eating insects and bugs and little bitty fish, things like that. Gary Hempel says, What fish food do you recommend? I recommend Purina's Aqua Max. And the Aqua Max fish food's based on your goals. MVP's 9 different pellet sizes to feed little bitty fish, medium-sized fish, big fish. But if you're feeding catfish, we'll pick another one. If you're feeding largemouth bass, we're going to pick another one. There's Tuesday Atkinson. Hey, Tuesday, good to see you. You're down in the Caribbean living down there. Ron says, how many spots left for Pondology? That's where I was going to go. The Bob Lusk Institute of Higher Pondology is coming up. Can't think of a better name, so we're going to leave it with that one. It's kind of grown on me like a work. I don't like promoting myself, but I'm going to do it. This is my 40th year in business. I've learned a lot. I want to share that knowledge with as many people as I can that are willing to pay for it. After I sold my pond management business, I got to figure out a way to make more of a living. So one of those things is sell what I know. So coming up in October 24, 25, 26, 27, you can come hang out with me and up to 15 other people. And I'm going to take you to some of the depths of pond knowledge that you've never even thought about. Matter of fact, I just sealed up a deal where we're going to go to a 7,000-acre ranch with a 70-acre lake, 20-acre lake, a bunch of hatchery ponds, great facilities. You're going to see a bunch of wild game, but you're going to get a bunch of hands-on stuff. You're going to learn how to run gill nets, set fight nets. You're going to do some seining, spend time in the electrofishing boat. You're going to collect data. You're going to understand what the data truly means. And these are all things you can take back and use either in your pond management efforts with your lakes and ponds, or you can take it back like what Ron's talking about. He started a pond management company in South Louisiana. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to set things up where we're going to have some classroom time. You're going to eat good. We can sleep about 12 people to 15 people at our place. We've got several bedrooms in the house, and our house is cool. It's designed to entertain people, and that's what we're going to do. I'm going to entertain you, educate you, plus I'm working on bringing in some pretty cool speakers as well. And looks like we got Sean McNulty coming over from Alabama to talk about what they go through to raise F1 tiger bass, how they came to that point. Mike Otto wants to come talk about heavy equipment, dirt, building lakes and ponds. I'm trying to convince Bruce Condello I'm up to bribe him with a fishing trip, which I'm going to do. And he can tell you some of the outside-of-the-box things that he does at his place up in Lincoln, Nebraska. So it's going to be a pretty dadgum cool thing. And my wife just informed me as I see, and my wife, she's pretty fun to hang around with too. She's actually the life of the party. Wait, hold it. No, she is the party. Debbie is the party. You will enjoy the heck out of Debbie. And this is her place. She's designed it. And all I had to do was get out of her way, which took me a while to figure that out. But it's really, really a great place, great curriculum. I'm working to get the curriculum finished now. And it's not cheap. It's $1,500. Now on Thursday, we're going to have a basic pond management talk, and that's going to be all classroom. Then that evening, we're going to have a meet and greet. Everybody's going to come get to know each other. We're going to start the program for the Institute at about 4 o'clock on that Thursday and have social time. And then on all day Friday, all day Saturday, part of the morning Sunday, everybody's going to cut out $1,500 per person to come to that. Now, if you only want to do the basic pond management gig for like 8 to 3 on Thursday, that's $250. That includes a catered lunch as well. That's going to be held at our office, which is 1.5 miles from our house. So that's it. Yep, Zach and Jason, y'all need to come. Randy Smith. Hello, Bobby boy. Hello, Randy Smith. Good to see you. Let's see here. Let me take one more little question here. Sheridan Ashmore. I go to a golf course pond every once in a while with permission, and I see a slimy bloom right on the surface. I don't know if that's as bad, honestly. It kind of depends. It could be. It could be a blue-green algae bloom. It could be dead algae floating to the surface. If it looks like paint on the surface of the water, that's a dead bloom. That's what it is, and that happens this time of year all the time. So at 7:28, the last couple of lives I've done, the video cut off abruptly. I think I figured out why. I think it's because the memory on my phone was full. So I dumped about 12 gigs of memory off my phone, which meant getting rid of a bunch of photos and saving a bunch of pictures to other places and getting rid of some videos and stuff. So I'm going to wrap it up. 7:29. I can't thank you enough for hanging out and sharing this video to your timeline. We want to keep building an audience, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate what you guys are doing. And hey, keep being great stewards of your water. That's your job, because it's going to be here way after we're gone. And if you can take care of it now and make it better for yourself, you'll make it better for others. So, pondboss.com, BobLuskOutdoors.com. And I appreciate you guys checking in. Until next Wednesday, or if I get ready to show up another time live, I'll do it. Till next Wednesday, adios.